Folks, the rest of the podcast will be done by Clem Cadiddlehopper. So then we watched the Fastlane. Oh,
Hey,
boy.
can I say the worst thing about WWE Fastlane?
Yes.
Every replay they showed had that noise of like a car speeding by. Every time they went to it, and then every time it ended, it was like, Zoom! And then they had to see the replay.
It's disturbing to our canine friends. The dogs think the cars are rushing by and they want to go chase them. There was a couple of things on here I wish would have gone and chased some cars. We watched an AEW pay-per-view last week, and we watched the WWE pay-per-view this week. WWE pay-per-view, 2 hours and 45 minutes long, a show with 5 matches. When it's over, you say, is that it? And AEW is a show, it's 5.5 hours long with 14 matches, and at the end of it, you say, please be it. I don't think there's anything in the middle anymore, is there?
It's a weird thing with these WWE pay-per-views. This is maybe the third or fourth time it's happened where midway through the show, I thought that was the end. I was like, oh, that's a nice, pleasing pay-per-view. And there's still a few more matches, but not that many. What were there, 5 matches, 6 matches?
Yeah, I just said 5.
5 matches.
Listed 5 matches.
So I just got out of the time machine. It's like, you get concussed. It's
you got the time lag.
Yeah.
But the point is, again, and I mentioned it, I think, earlier in this program that we did, if they're going to bore you with nothing or bore you with chaos, the people who bore you with the nothing with the stars are going to beat the people who bore you with the fucking chaos that don't make sense. And that's what's happening. They had 14,000 people in Indianapolis or whatever sold out. Although, my God, Indianapolis 50 years ago got Bruiser and Crusher against the Valiants and the Blackjacks, right? And now this. The thing about Indianapolis was a great wrestling town, and I watched it for years. The preliminaries sucked. Just preliminary matches to get guys over. The people came for the 2 main events, one of whom usually involved Dick the Bruiser, and he was God. And Heenan was over like crazy, and all of Bruiser's opponents were over. And that was chaos and blood and violence and everything else. I have to think if you put somebody in the time machine from Indianapolis in 1972, and they left watching Bruiser and Crusher against the Blackjacks, and they came back to watch any of this show, they would think, what the fuck are we looking at? What has gone on here? It's nothing like what was called professional wrestling in a previous era. You can still recognize baseball and football and basketball, but not wrestling. Anyway, the first match was for the tag team title. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso against Damian Finn and Judgment Priest. God damn, we've been watching a lot of Damian Priest and Finn Judgment. And Finn's judgment is very thin being involved in this group. And I wanted to like this because Cody's involved. But you answer me honestly. Was this was it a TV match with no commercials? It was just kind of slow and didn't kick in until right at the finish. It went by.
The finish was really hot and the fans were really into it, and they were surprised, I think, to even get the title change. But it took forever. They drew everything out. And again, I guess when you're going to do a 3-hour pay-per-view with 5 matches, you're going to try to draw those tag matches out as long as you can.
Well, boy, they certainly did. And that's a couple of, minor points with me. Both the Usos, I mentioned this earlier, I was going to talk about it. They're doing the fucking slap punch to a ridiculous degree. And I'm not talking about the slap sound effect. I'm talking about they actually open their hand and they don't throw a punch. They ball it up, and in the swing, they open it, and they're slapping guys. And not only you can see it if you're looking, but we've all got DVRs now. We got slow-mo. It's obvious. And they're not even laying the slap in. And Priest is doing the open hand and turning his arm and slapping the sound effect at the same time. And Guys, Jesus Christ. Fucking hell. I wouldn't let those punches on OVW television. And here we are going around the world. But anyway, like you said, at the finish, boom, 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 they were really cooking. And at the point, Rhea at one point hits Uso with the briefcase, gets a 2 count. And then Priest clears the desktop off. And JD has the case, but he swings at Cody and hits Priest's bad leg that he's been selling. And then Jay did a dive, and Cody and Jay hit a double team, and Cody hit the crossroads on Finn, 1, 2, 3. And boom, there you go. The baby faces won. As you said, the last 2 or 3 minutes was great, but boy, it took them a long fucking time to get there, and they weren't setting the fucking canvas on fire.
It took them a long time to get there, and then once they got there, after the match, I was like, there's an interesting wrinkle in the whole bloodline thing. They had to do something new. Now Cody had to get him back into everything with Roman. Now he's teaming up and he's tag champions with Jey Uso.
Yeah.
I almost like what could possibly happen more than everything that led to whatever the finish was. Again, I thought the finish was really hot and the fans were really into it. Whatever you want to say about the slow pacing, for the guys that are over, WWE fans have shown they're willing to sit through that.
Yes.
Because they're still going to be there at the end, because they're waiting for it. They know it's coming.
For the guys that are over. And then the guys that ain't over, they try to go 100 miles an hour and run off and leave people because they ain't over anyway. Nevertheless. Pointed, again, new tag team champions. And, we've got a variety of ways that they can go with this. So, again, I'm saying pay-per-view. It's premium live event. Nobody buys this thing anymore except me, so I can watch it on real television. And they've taken these big shows to just sometimes, well, we just need to get this guy in that position to set up something else. It's not, we used to have pressure every month. What's the pay-per-view lineup? What are the matches? What's drawing the money? What's selling this thing? What can we dig into? What's the Undertaker doing? What's the champion doing? Usually all hands on deck. Everybody's available to fucking pick from. It was the most important thing. And now it's kind of, these are a few good matches. There's no pressure. Anyway, speaking of no pressure, then we had the 6-man tag team match with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits against Rey Mysterio and Pablo Escobar, and they don't have a third partner because the other 2 guys got wiped out on SmackDown, and allegedly Rey had made a phone call, but, nobody comes out, right? So they're going to do this 2-on-3. And in here somewhere is the remnants of a wrestling angle that one of these writers has seen or heard about or watched on YouTube, but I've never actually seen it done this way before. And I will get into that here in a second when the third guy comes out. But basically, this started at 100 miles an hour, but the fans didn't care, really, because I think I don't know what they were waiting for, but probably to see who the third guy was going to be, because some people had signs for him, so it was a big secret. But again, the match, Ray gets in and fires him up, but if he's not doing something, it was kind of there. And then they got heat on Ray and jerked Escobar off the apron to where he couldn't tag in, and Ray kept trying to go for the tag, but he didn't have a partner. And then finally, Ray fires up a little bit and knocks the heels to the floor, and music starts playing. And here comes Carlito. And he's dressed to wrestle. Here's the goddamn question I have. If he was already there, why, and already willing to be their partner, why did he wait till both of them had got the shit kicked out of him before he came out? Bruh, the angle that they were trying to do was the babyface late in arriving, and the other babyfaces don't want to lose their opportunity at whatever, revenge, championship, whatever, so they go it alone. But when they get in trouble, here comes the fucking third guy in street clothes with a suitcase, right? He just got there. Is this what they were trying to do?
I don't know. Maybe Carlito was with Darby filming like a vignette video to
Oh, quit now.
drive up. I mean, it's poorly
I'm
done.
asking you an honest to God
It's poorly
question.
done because it doesn't make any sense that all of a sudden he would be there in his gear, calmly walking to the ring after all of this had happened. Was he by the monitor? Yes, he was.
Well, of course he was. And they did that so it would get a pop at the end of the match that nobody cared about because their bad booking didn't make them care. But no, there's a way to make
And they
these
didn't want him to
things
work
make
the whole
sense.
match. Whatever that says, they didn't want him to work the whole match.
Why not? Yeah, but maybe he didn't get tagged in. I did. But this was the first thing that got the people. Because out he comes, he gets the tag, he makes a comeback, hits the backstabber, 1, 2, 3. So that was fine from that point, but again, it took him a while to get there. But why wait? Why wait? He's here. The only reason to wait is for the pop, and that means that it's laid out, choreographed, phony, scripted, whatever the fuck, and that this guy didn't care that his friends were getting the shit kicked out of him for the previous 15 minutes. He wanted his entrance. And one more thing I noticed. Carlito in OVW was one of the smallest guys on the roster. And here, when everybody held their hands up, he looked like Luger. He was a giant. Not just with Ray, with Escobar, with the referee, with everybody. What'd you think? Am I just cranky now because I've seen so much of this?
I mean, the match didn't really do it for me. And it was kind of like I don't want to say like a holding match, but it was just a match there to me. I was never a big Carlito fan, but obviously got a big pop and people remember him. I mean, it's been a long time. It was fine. I mean, I can't rip it, but I can't say I liked it. I don't know what you want me to say.
I don't want you to say anything, but you came, you saw, and you left.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine with it. It's nice, I guess, that he has a job with WWE again, and we'll see how they use him. Is he going to join the LWO? Will he take over the LWO? Well,
how many people are they allowed to have? Is there a fucking salary cap on these factions? Because they got, what's the one guy, Born to Be Wild, and the other guy is Benicio del Toro. And then you got Escobar, and you got Ray, and you got Zelina.
That's 5.
Now you got Carlito. There's 6.
Maybe.
This thing's fucking taking over here. Anyway, so then the SUV pulled up, and the door opened, and the silver high-heeled boot came out, and it was Jade Cargill stepping into the fucking WWE, being greeted by Triple H, big handshake, great chatting conversation. Was that her wrestling gear, or was that a street clothes outfit?
Man, she was almost nude. I don't think she could wrestle in that, and I don't think she walks around in the street like that, but that's I'm a star and I'm arriving, and
that was the thing. She looked like she was in a superhero costume. If the superhero was, swinging around a pole at the fucking mouse's ear.
The mouse's ear.
That was
in Knoxville. I know.
That was the premier establishment in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'll have you know.
I remember. I was there.
I wasn't even there. But she looked fantastic, but she walked in that, and off they went. So Triple H was having a closed door meeting with Jade Cargill for the rest of the night. She has arrived.
She obviously presents herself in a certain way. You'd be stupid not to go with that, but you have to think they're also sending a message to anyone they're ever going to want from AEW. Look at how much better we've already presented her than she was presented there for a couple of years as an undefeated champion.
And there you go. And speaking of championships, the women's championship was on the line in a 3-way. And I can't believe I've gotten sold that I don't want to watch 3 women in a 3-way, but Charlotte versus Asuka versus Io. And again, Charlotte's a superstar, but I was running low on time, and I figured this one's going to take a while too. And you might chastise me because Your favorite Oscar was involved. But basically, Charlotte got the figure eight on Oscar, and Oscar was tapping, but Bailey had the referee drawn, and Io moonsaulted Charlotte while she was in the bridge, which looked cool as shit, by the way. And boom, and although I'm glad nobody got their leg broke, I don't exactly know how they did that. And boom, 1, 2, 3. So Io comes out the winner. Fill in the blanks on me there, Brian. What great grappling action did we skip over there?
I skipped over it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really want to watch it. Nothing against anyone in the match, but it's a weird pay-per-view. It's like there were no feuds settled. It's like no title. I mean, the tag titles actually did change hands, but like nothing got. It was just a furtherance. It was almost like a TV, like you said, a TV show without commercials on a Saturday night.
To paraphrase Kevin Sullivan, it was a maintenance pay-per-view. It just kept everything running right along, but we didn't break any new ground.
Yeah.
Except Pat McAfee got in the ring, and I bet he broke some wind, if not new ground. He's a hometown boy in Indianapolis, got a big response. People liked seeing him, add star power. He's a celebrity. And
he may work better with Michael Cole than Corey Graves does. It hit me watching this.
Well, yeah. And I'm sure it hit you and you saw stars, but I wish we saw more McAfee. But anyway, he called for a WrestleMania in Indianapolis and got a big pop. And then he was the one to introduce John Cena. And then Cena music entrance, big pop. LA Knight music entrance, big pop. Here come the Bloodline. And now we've got LA Knight and John Cena against Jimmy Uso and Solo with Paul Heyman in the corner. And this is one half of the double main event. We're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Remember I told you earlier that this is multiple pay-per-views now? I thought a match was the end of the show, and I kept going. This was the match. I thought this was the main event, the end of the show.
Yeah, well, because the last match was the last match, not because nobody could follow it, but because nobody wanted to fucking sit there and wait on it to be over. I'm sure if Cena found out what they were doing, he said, put me in before that so I can be on my way by the time they're done. And you couldn't have been farther apart in these main events. One of them was all psychology, told a story, accomplished pretty much every point they wanted to accomplish, whether you agree with those points or not, and was pretty much perfectly done to give the people exactly what they came to see. And the other one was the biggest bunch of horse shit I've ever seen in my fucking life. And we will detail both of those here briefly. With LA and Cena's match, and by the way, this was where the announcers even started talking about Paulie for, what was it, a few weeks ago? I said, what is he, coloring his hair with a Sharpie? He had like skunk stripes, not like a salt and pepper type of thing, but like gray and then a black stripe and gray and a black stripe. It looked like he was with Pepe Le Pew crawling under the fucking fence. And now it's all gray, what's left of it at least. And the announcers started making fun of it. Well, look, Paul's hair has turned gray. What's going on here? He's aging in front of our eyes.
And it's intentional, clearly. He's so nervous about what's going on with Roman, and Roman's not around, and he's dealing with all the stress, and he's watching Jimmy Uso do things, and he can't stop him, and Solo's going along with it. Heyman is finally reacting to the stress.
But here's the thing. He's really aging. It's not a work.
All it took was him not dyeing his hair and not painting his face orange.
Now he looks like Alfred Hitchcock in his frenzy stage.
In black and white.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm concerned for Paul's health. He looks like he's doing the reverse Benjamin Button thing. It's the picture of Paul Heyman instead of Dorian Gray. He's literally turning to dust in front of us. Poor fella. I'm glad I'm only a few years older than he is. But anyway, nevertheless, let's get back to the match. So the way that they did this was perfect, because Cena starts, and you were talking about earlier that LA Knight is getting the rub, but not being the little buddy. And this was constructed exactly to make LA Knight a star instead of the little buddy. They got John in Cena at the start, and he shined a little bit. And then Solo cut him off, and they got the heat on Cena for the next fucking 10 minutes. And LA Knight had never gotten in yet. So not only was he going to get a pop when he got the hot tag, but it was going to be a bigger pop because they hadn't seen him do anything yet. They made them want it. And, you know, that's why, again, the other Uso doing the open-handed punches. And this was a complete working match. Psychology. Cena's not going to take any risks. He can't. He'd be an idiot. He's got to go back and do a movie or finish a movie or whatever. But the way they built this with personalities involved, he didn't need to dive off the goddamn biggest ladder in the world. And we review AEW, we talk about the thousands of things that they do wrong or is stupid. With WWE, they don't do very much wrong because, as we mentioned, they don't do very much at all. But you understand the point they're trying to make. So anyway, finally, Cena fought up a little bit, gave Uso an attitude adjustment. Both of them sold, and Solo stopped the tag. And then Solo hit him with a bonsai drop, but tried a second one, and Cena nutted him. And that's when Cena hit the tag to LA Knight after they were 12 minutes into the match, the first time they'd seen LA Knight, and he came in and got a huge pop and did all of his shit. He made a big comeback. He only got stopped by an Uso super kick so that Uso could miss off the top, and LA Knight could hit his power slam and LA elbow. And then Solo stopped him with a Samoan drop, but Cena came off the top with a crossbody and leveled fucking Solo. And then Uso splashed Cena, and everybody was down, which gave LA Knight a chance to come back up and beat Dusty Rhodes. Did you love the left and right jabs?
I thought Uso and Solo did a good job standing there taking it so it didn't look ridiculous.
Because it is ridiculous, but the people were loving it. And that's the thing. That's a test. Dusty Rhodes was God to the fans in his day. So when he did the goddamn Three Stooges elbow and the flip-flop and fly and the whatever the fuck, they bought it. And Steve Austin, we've talked about it. When he stomped the mud hole in people with those fake fucking kicks in the corner, it was Austin, and they bought it. And there's LA Knight giving one guy left and one guy right, and they're stooging for it. And the people are buying it. So, and they're yeah-ing it. Yeah, 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 every time he fucking hits them. That's a litmus test for whether or not, when you can do this ridiculous shit and the people are not rolling their eyes, there you go. Anyway, then they got LA's leap to the top rope and superplex in on Jimmy Uso, and then Cena got the 5-knuckle shuffle, and LA Knight hit his finish on Uso, 1, 2, 3. And the right team win. It was the right finish. LA Knight is standing comparable to John Cena, and the heels didn't really suffer for this because they're going to come back and get some more fucking heat. So this was the best thing on the show to me.
The heels didn't suffer too because the story wasn't them losing. It was what will Roman Reigns' reaction be to them losing. So you don't even care that they lost. You just want to see what the repercussions will be.
Yeah, you're already looking past that. It wasn't, oh my God, this is the most momentous thing ever that they lost. It was like, well, now, whatever Roman's going to say about this may be the most momentous thing ever. So that was the best thing on the show. But we still had more thing.
And boy, did Cena really do everything he could to get LA Knight over. And at the end, when he did the thing where he tried to lift up LA Knight's arm to give him the rub, LA Knight actually turned it down. And what a smart thing to do. If they hadn't planned it out, what a smart thing to do. Not that he gave Cena the rub, but he gave all the attention to Cena.
Well, but in response to the, and yes, it was planned out. I can guarantee you. But see, here's the thing, and probably John probably said this. If LA Knight had raised Cena's hand right off the bat, then all the attention would have gone to Cena as the big star. LA Knight goes to raise, or I'm sorry, Cena goes to raise LA Knight's hand, and that would have got a pop, right? But LA Knight, being deferential to the star, obviously stops it and raises his hand, and then the attention went on LA Knight raising John Cena's hand, and LA Knight looks like a nicer guy for it. You see what I'm saying? So just that little bit of interplay, it changed the dynamic from, again, it wasn't like he just went over and did it first, like, yeah, this is the big star and I'm glad to be with him. The big star was going to do it first, but the new big star said, oh, no, I'm much too humble. Allow me. Give the old guy a round of applause, folks. That it changed, just little things like that changes the way people see things.
You know, the way LA Knight has gotten over and the kind of reactions he's getting is such a great argument for the average wrestling fan wants people who act like they're stars, not people who are into the aw shucks. It's my dream to be here. I've always wanted this. I want you to be my friend.
Yeah.
No, they want people who seem like they're stars, and he acts like it. He willed himself in a way to be this.
And they want people who act like wrestlers. And for, people who want to knock him say, well, he's acting like the guys in the Attitude Era. Yeah, all the guys that were over, they were drawing big money, had huge crowds coming to see him. You want to act like them? What the fuck's the matter with you? Dipshits. But then it moved on. The last match of the evening was the last man standing match for the World Heavyweight title number 3, with Seth Franklin Rollins against Shaky Nakamura. And Brian, I mentioned that I was going to invoke the Marx Brothers principle about this match. And you're a big Marx Brothers fan.
Massive.
And I thought of this because as I was trying to sit through this, watching them do everything that every other fucking outlaw, independent goofball does in these garbage matches, I thought of the Marx Brothers. And for those of you who don't know, the Marx Brothers, before they got in the movies, they were huge stars in vaudeville, but then they were the biggest comedy stars on Broadway. And they were starring in plays on Broadway in the big theaters. As a matter of fact, the first few movies, 4 or 5 that they made, were adaptations of their Broadway plays.
I actually just got a book. So it's here in my office by Robert S. Bader, 4 of the 3 Musketeers. It's a history of the Marx Brothers on stage.
And they were brilliant. They were some of the biggest stars in the business at the time. And they were unique. They had some of the best comedy writers of the day, George S. Kaufman and Sid Perelman and fucking Bert Ruby and all these people. The writers would give them the premise. They'd put them in a hotel resort, or they'd put them in a foreign country, or they'd put them at the goddamn opera house or whatever. And they would write a script where they had interaction with these other characters. And then they would hand it to the Marx Brothers. And the Marx Brothers would do their fucking thing with it. Because they were unique. Nobody could be the Marx Brothers. Nobody could do that shit. And the Marx Brothers, individually, were all unique. Groucho was the wise ass. Chico was the fucking shady guy. Harpo was the goddamn, the mute, playful, boyish charm guy. And they all had different, Zeppo was Zeppo. And they all had different talents. They all stood out. But the point is, there's a story that may be apocryphal. It may be true. They were on Broadway one night in a theater, and one of the writers is in the back talking to one of the critics, and they're having a conversation, and suddenly the writer tells the guy, says, "Shh, shut up. I think I just heard one of the original lines." Because it was still the same location and the same set and the same characters named the same thing, but the Marx Brothers would do their own shit with it. And that's why it made it completely unique. And nothing else was like it. And in wrestling, the relationship between the booker and the top talent used to be the same way. The booker will give you the premise, why you're mad or what you're fighting over, and suggestions of the interaction you could have. And he'll tell you what characters are involved in this particular issue. But then he would tell the top talent to do it, and they would all do it differently. Because every talent had been trained and come up in a different place, in a different territory, had wrestled multitudes of different people, established their own style, their own gimmick, their own look. Yes, the Mighty Igor and Ivan Putski did the same thing, but not at the same time in the same territory, in different parts of the country. And that's what made wrestling so different. You could go from territory to territory, and even if you were seeing the same guys, they looked different because they were selling different styles of wrestling. And I'm not talking about lucha and hardcore. I'm talking about, is it brawling? Is it more athletic? Is it more technical work or whatever? We've talked about this. But everybody did the shit differently. And there was some parameters and rules of the road for what you couldn't do before you made the business complete horse shit. And those were enforced by the bookers and the promoters. And otherwise, that's why there was such variety, and you enjoyed watching all these different people have all these different matches. But now it's like when they have these garbage, hardcore weapons matches or no DQ, lazy booking, stipulations out the ass, it's like everybody, no matter who they are, what they look like, what their background is, or what their style is, are trying to be the Marx Brothers. Because they do the same shit. Everybody, you can call it. And I mean, 30 seconds into this thing, Seth was pulling out a kendo stick. After 45 seconds, they were out on the floor where the crowd was already chanting, "We want tables," because the furniture is more over in this situation than any of the talent. And then in 2 minutes, they've peeled the pad off the floor and they were using the stairs. And we have suddenly, on this show, gone from a match that was all psychology to a match that's none. It's not even hand-to-hand combat. It's not a sporting event. It's not even imitation wrestling. It's just guys going out and having a big-budget movie fight scene for 30 fucking minutes. After 3 minutes on the floor, then Seth throws the chairs and the garbage can in the ring and pulls out 2 tables and throws them in and sets that up, and then they go back out to the floor and fight around the ring. And then Nakamura gets foam nunchucks and hits Seth. He hit him in the back, and he hit him in the legs with nunchucks. And then he drops the nunchucks on purpose to charge Seth and run into his boot. Brian, if you've got nunchucks in your fucking hand and nobody's stopping you from using them, you gonna put him down to charge at the fucking guy?
I wouldn't, and he seemed like a master of the nunchucks, too.
So then the heel put the garbage can over the baby face and pinatas him with the stick. That's backwards. That's what in a garbage match with the baby face does to the fucking heel in a comeback. Who wants to cheer the heel trying to bash fucking Rollins' head in? But that's what it was. Every modern indie garbage match, but with no blood and a slower pace and a bigger budget. And it's just over and over. There's so much junk in the ring. They got to work and walk around it. First time they tried to run shaky through the table, it didn't break. Then they set a ladder up by the announcer's desk and teased a spot, but they'll come back to that. Then they went in the back of the arena, and here, Seth Rollins in the course of this match is going to take a bump on a real announcer's table off a ladder. and he's going to go through another real table at the finish. And they set up a crash pad so he could take a bump off the bleachers. They fight back to the back of the arena and up the stairs into the bleachers and get on the, and they're showing you the crash pad on camera. And what else would it be? They've got a cloth over the top of it and black draping around the edge of it, but it is a completely open 12 by 12 foot surface 2 feet off the ground with nothing sitting on it that it is not at a place where it can be used as a stage, has no equipment sitting on it, and coinkadinkily, they fight to the exact location when Seth gets knocked off the fucking bleachers, he falls on it and bounces. What was that supposed to be, Brian, besides a crash pad?
Not a crash pad, a area, a platform, a interview platform.
It was on camera more than goddamn the wrestlers were. They wouldn't get it out of the shot. The only thing, when he landed on it, they had the cameras set just so that you'd see his body bounce, but not what he landed on. Then he rolled off. Then they got the shot of him on the floor. But while they're shooting him on the floor, he's laying next to a crash pad. Just don't take the bump. You're taking other bumps through shit. You don't need to take an extra bump, especially on a crash pad. And at that point, I said, fuck it. I'm fast forwarding. I'm getting to the finish of this thing because I'm getting pissed because it's just garbage. I can't say it doesn't take talent because being a stunt man in the movies takes talent. But there is nothing related to wrestling or the concept of wrestling or what wrestling traditionally has been for 100 years from this. This would be great as a 3-minute angle where they get out of control and they fight around and they take one of these bumps. But in 30 minutes with the sticks and the cans and the chairs and the tables and the phoniness and the obvious cooperation. And at the end, finally, they broke a table, finally. Then they finally pushed Seth off the ladder and he went through the announce desk. And then they fought in the back of the arena again and they went through another fucking table. And that's when Seth finally won. 30 fucking minutes. Can you eat the best filet mignon in the world for 4 fucking hours straight before you're tired of filet mignon? And this wasn't no filet. I could still see the marks where the jockey was beating this steak.
Well, hopefully this is the end of the Nakamura-Seth Rollins feud.
And on the entrances, there's people that have fucking epileptic seizures that weren't jerking and twitching and convulsing like these two. Talk about a fucking complimentary gimmick. One guy it looks like he's being electrocuted on the way to the ring. And then here comes the other guy, and he looks like he's wearing electric clothing.
Yeah, the other guy saw that and said, that's a good idea. I should try that.
Yeah. But I mean, I just, and they're risking injury. The more you give people this shit, the more they expect it. That's why now every time they see somebody pull out a weapon, they start chanting for tables. In the territory days, you broke tables. But in a particular town, maybe a couple times a year. And on TV, maybe the same. But now it's constant. It's a cliche. It's a parody. The furniture and the bullshit. That's what they have ruined the business by doing this so much because it gets the cheap pops that now people expect it rather than are thrilled with the anticipation of it. It's like if they didn't get it, they'd be disappointed. And that's the worst psychology of all the bad psychology in wrestling today. If the people don't get excessive amounts of shit that you shouldn't do that much of, they'll feel disappointed because you've done it for so long. What the fuck?
Well,
That's my thoughts.
that was Fastlane. 5 matches, 3 hours.
248 to be exact, I believe.
Relatively painless, especially if you have the option to fast forward.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't a big show. It was a big show in name only. Nothing was offensive except for the last match, which is just fucking stupid. But they didn't make any ridiculous mistakes, and the points that they needed to make, they got over. It takes a long time. As we've said, this is completely a tale of neither one of the AEW or WWE products resembles professional wrestling anymore, but they've gone in completely different directions. But again, we see which one is winning, and by at ever widening margins. So I got to go with it. They're going with the stars and the fucking budget.
Hey, listen, no matter what you want to say, AEW returns to a town. The crowd is much smaller. WWE returns to a town right now. They're selling out. They're setting records everywhere they go.
And boy, have people's expectations lowered to this point where they're happy to go and watch these shows. The WWE shows, I mean. They're happy to go and sit there through 3 hours of Raw where almost nothing happens, and they get talked to for 2 of the 3 hours, and they pay more money than ever to do it. I wish it had been this easy to draw money when I was in the business, where we didn't actually have to go out and fucking act like we meant it and do exciting shit. Just go fucking cut promos for 25 minutes. That could have been my thing.
And instead of people trying to attack you or getting mad at you, they could just stand there with a smile on their face and yell boo while you talk.
Yes. That wouldn't have been any fun at all. I wouldn't have lasted fucking 6 months in the wrestling business if it was today, because I would have fucking screamed and torn my hair out and said, I got to get away from this shit.
Here's the thing too. People say like, oh, look, that's a great example of Don Callis' heat. No, with Dominic Mysterio, because his character was a putz, it's a way of the crowd disrespecting someone they don't like. With Don Callis, it's a bunch of fans smiling like, yeah, he's the bad guy. Let's boo him. That's not heat.
Yeah, let's see about 3 or 4 drunk motherfuckers coming under the goddamn ropes at the same time to get you, and see if you feel like that's the same kind of reaction as boo. Yeah, Conan! I think that's a little bit more trepidatious a position to be in than just the fans are booing over your live promo. I've been in both situations, and the first one, the people coming under the ropes out of the crowd, made me more nervous.